Wei Wuxian did not want to go on a blind date, but his sister insisted. "Just meet him once," she said. So he went, wearing simple clothes and a bored expression. He walked into the quiet restaurant, looking around, when his eyes landed on a man sitting alone. The man was tall, dressed in black with a cold and calm face. His presence felt powerful. Wei Wuxian smiled and walked over, thinking, "This must be my date." Lan Wangji had not come for a date. He was waiting for someone from his business, someone important in the underground world. As a mafia king, he was used to danger, silence, and control. But then a cheerful stranger suddenly sat in front of him and said, "Hi, I'm Wei Wuxian. Sorry I'm late." Lan Wangji frowned slightly but did not stop him. Wei Wuxian talked a lot. He laughed, joked, and even complained about being forced into this blind date. Lan Wangji listened quietly, his cold eyes watching every movement. No one had ever spoken to him so freely before. It was strange, but not unpleasant. Meanwhile, the real blind date was sitting at another table, confused and waiting. And the person Lan Wangji was supposed to meet had already left, thinking he had been stood up. After some time, Wei Wuxian finally noticed something was wrong. "Wait, you are my date, right?" he asked. Lan Wangji looked at him calmly and said, "No." There was a short silence, and then Wei Wuxian burst out laughing. Instead of leaving, Wei Wuxian leaned forward with a playful smile. "Then I guess I chose the wrong person, but maybe it's not a bad mistake." Lan Wangji looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, he felt something unexpected. A simple mistake. But it was only the beginning. Wei Wuxian did not sleep well that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered Lan Wangji sitting calmly across from him, talking like a dangerous but gentle king. The word Mafia kept echoing in his mind. In the morning, he tried to convince himself it was just a mistake, just a strange blind date that would never happen again. But deep inside, he felt something was not over yet. At his small office, Wei Wuxian tried to focus on his work, but his thoughts kept drifting. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He stared at it for a long second before answering. "Hello?" he said carefully. There was a pause. Then a familiar low voice replied, "It's me." Wei Wuxian froze. He would never forget that voice. It was Lan Wangji. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Mafia boss?" he joked nervously. There was silence on the other end. Then Lan Wangji said calmly, "Lan Wangji." His tone was steady, but it made Wei Wuxian sit up straight. "Why are you calling me?" Wei Wuxian asked, trying to sound brave. "We didn't finish dinner," Lan Wangji answered simply. "Let's meet again." Wei Wuxian almost dropped his phone. "Meet again?" he repeated, shocked. "That was a mistake. I think you got the wrong person. I'm not the one you were supposed to meet." He laughed awkwardly, hoping to end things there. But Lan Wangji's next words made his heart skip. "I know," he said, "but I still want to see you." The office suddenly felt too quiet. Wei Wuxian didn't understand why someone like Lan Wangji, rich, powerful, and possibly dangerous, would want to meet him again. "You don't even know me," he said softly. "I know enough," Lan Wangji replied. "You are honest. You are not afraid to speak." After a short pause, he added, "I like that." Wei Wuxian felt his face heat up. No one had said something like that to him before, especially not someone like Lan Wangji. He tried to laugh it off, but his heart was beating fast. "You're really strange," he muttered. "Most people would run away after hearing Mafia. Will you run?" Lan Wangji asked. Wei Wuxian looked out the window, thinking, maybe he should say yes. Maybe he should stay far away from this man and his dangerous world. But instead, a small smile appeared on his lips. "No," he said finally. "I won't run." There was a quiet pause. Then Lan Wangji said, "Good." His voice sounded softer this time. "I'll pick you up tonight." Before Wei Wuxian could protest, the call ended. He stared at his phone, feeling both excited and nervous. "What did I just agree to?" he whispered. Far away, inside a dark and luxurious office, Lan Wangji stood by the window, looking down at the city. One of his men stepped forward carefully. Sir, should we investigate him? He asked. Lan Wangji shook his head slightly. No need, he said. His eyes were calm, but there was something new in them. He is mine to understand. That night was going to change everything. That evening, Wei Wuxian stood outside his apartment, pacing back and forth. He checked his phone again and again, wondering if he should cancel. This is a bad idea. A really bad idea, he whispered to himself. But before he could run back inside, a long black car stopped right in front of him. The door opened, and a man in a suit stepped out. Mr. Wei, he said politely. Please come with me. Wei Wuxian blinked. Wow, he even sends people to pick me up, he muttered, half impressed, half scared. Taking a deep breath, he got into the car. The ride was quiet, too quiet. Wei Wuxian tried to look calm, but his eyes kept moving, noticing everything. The tinted windows, the serious driver, the feeling that he had stepped into another world. After some time, the car stopped in front of a grand building. It looked more like a palace than a house. Inside, everything was elegant and cold. Before Wei Wuxian could take it all in, a familiar figure appeared. Lan Wangji walked toward him, dressed in a simple but expensive outfit. He looked calm as always, but his eyes softened slightly when they landed on Wei Wuxian. You came, Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian crossed his arms, trying to act confident. Of course I came. I said I wouldn't run, remember? Then he looked around and added, but wow, you really are a big deal, huh? Lan Wangji ignored the comment and gestured for him to follow. Dinner is ready. This time, the dinner was even more luxurious than before. Wei Wuxian stared at the table. Are we feeding an army? He joked, sitting down. Lan Wangji simply sat across from him, watching quietly. For a while, they ate in silence. Then Wei Wuxian couldn't hold it anymore. So, are you really a mafia boss? He asked directly. Lan Wangji paused, then nodded once. Yes. Wei Wuxian almost choked on his food. You said that so easily, he said, eyes wide. Aren't you supposed to hide that? I do not lie, Lan Wangji replied calmly. Wei Wuxian stared at him, then laughed softly. You're really something. But after a moment, his expression became serious. Then why me? He asked. You can have anyone. Why do you want to meet me again? Lan Wangji looked at him for a long moment. The room felt quiet, almost tense. Then he said, because you are different. Wei Wuxian blinked. Different how? You are not afraid of me, Lan Wangji answered. You speak freely. You look at me like I am just a man. Wei Wuxian leaned back, thinking about it. Maybe because I don't fully believe it yet, he admitted honestly. You don't act like what I imagined a mafia boss would be. What did you imagine? Lan Wangji asked. Someone cold, cruel, scary, Wei Wuxian said. Then he smiled a little. You're cold, yes, but not scary. For a second, there was silence. Then, very softly, Lan Wangji said, I can be. Before Wei Wuxian could respond, the lights suddenly flickered. A loud noise echoed from outside. Both of them froze. A guard rushed in, looking tense. Sir, there's a problem, he said. Lan Wangji stood up immediately, his calm expression turning sharp and serious. Stay here, he told Wei Wuxian. But Wei Wuxian quickly stood up too. No way. If something dangerous is happening, I'm not just sitting here. Lan Wangji looked at him, his eyes dark. This is not your world. Wei Wuxian stepped closer, not backing down. Maybe not, he said, but I'm already in it. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Lan Wangji sighed quietly. Stay close, he said finally. As they walked toward the source of the noise, Wei Wuxian's heart was beating fast. He didn't know what was waiting ahead, but one thing was clear. His normal life was already far behind him. The hallway was dark and tense as Lan Wangji walked ahead, his steps steady and controlled. Behind him, Wei Wuxian followed closely, trying to stay calm even though his heart was racing fast. He had never been in a situation like this before, and every sound made him more nervous. They reached a large room where several guards were already standing alert. One of them stepped forward. "Sir, someone tried to break in," he reported. "We stopped them, but they escaped." Lan Wangji's face turned colder. "Did you see who it was?" he asked. The guard hesitated. "No, sir, but they seemed trained." Wei Wuxian crossed his arms, frowning. "So you have enemies," he said quietly. "That's not surprising." Lan Wangji did not reply immediately. His eyes moved around the room, sharp and calculating. Then he said, "Increase security." The guards nodded and quickly left to follow orders. The room became quiet again. Wei Wuxian let out a small breath. "Okay. That was scary," he admitted. "You deal with this kind of thing often?" "Sometimes," Lan Wangji answered. Wei Wuxian looked at him carefully. "And you still wanted me to come here?" he asked. "You knew it could be dangerous." Lan Wangji turned to face him fully. "I will not let anything happen to you," he said firmly. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Wei Wuxian felt his chest tighten slightly. "You sound very confident," he said, trying to hide his feelings. "I am," Lan Wangji replied. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Wei Wuxian sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "You're really serious about this, aren't you?" he said. "About seeing me again?" "Yes," Lan Wangji said without hesitation. Wei Wuxian looked away, thinking. He had always lived a simple life, work, home, normal things. But now he was standing in the middle of a dangerous world, talking to a mafia king who looked at him like he mattered. "You know," Wei Wuxian said slowly, "if I stay, things will only get more complicated." Lan Wangji stepped closer. "Then leave," he said, though his voice was quieter now. Wei Wuxian blinked, surprised. "You're letting me go?" Lan Wangji held his gaze. "If you are afraid, I will not force you." Wei Wuxian was silent for a few seconds. Then he smiled a little. "I never said I was afraid," he replied. Lan Wangji's eyes softened slightly. "Then stay." Wei Wuxian laughed softly. "You really don't give up, do you?" he said. Then he added, "Fine. I'll stay, for now." Just as the tension between them eased, another guard rushed in, looking more panicked this time. "Sir," he said quickly, "we found something." Lan Wangji turned immediately. "What is it?" The guard hesitated, then said, "They left a message." "A message?" Wei Wuxian repeated. The guard nodded and handed over a small object. Lan Wangji opened it and looked inside. For the first time, his expression changed. Not fear, but something darker. Wei Wuxian stepped closer. "What does it say?" he asked. Lan Wangji did not answer right away. Then he spoke in a low voice. "They know about you." Wei Wuxian froze. "About me?" Lan Wangji looked at him, his gaze intense. "You are no longer uninvolved." The room suddenly felt colder. Wei Wuxian's mind raced. He had only met Lan Wangji by accident. A simple mistaken blind date. But now, somehow, he had become part of something dangerous. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Then he looked straight at Lan Wangji. "All right," he said. "If I'm already involved, then you better tell me everything." Lan Wangji watched him for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "Come with me," he said. And just like that, the truth of Lan Wangji's world began to open, pulling Wei Wuxian deeper into a life he never expected. Lan Wangji led the way into a quiet, locked room. Felt different from the rest of the house. Less luxurious, more serious. Files, screens, and maps covered the walls. Wei Wuxian looked around, eyes wide. "Okay. This definitely looks like Mafia headquarters," he muttered. Lan Wangji ignored the comment and walked to a table. He placed the small object with the message down and opened a file. "Sit," he said. Wei Wuxian sat, but he leaned forward, curious. "So? Start talking," he said. "Who are these people? And why do they suddenly know about me?" Lan Wangji was silent for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. Then he said, "They are a rival group. They have been watching me for a long time." Wei Wuxian frowned. "Watching you is one thing. But me? I just met you. That is why they are interested." Lan Wangji replied. You are new. Unexpected. They think you are important. Wei Wuxian blinked. Important? I'm just a normal guy. Lan Wangji looked at him directly. Not anymore. Those words hit harder than Wei Wuxian expected. He leaned back, trying to process everything. So just because I had dinner with you, now I'm a target? He asked. Yes, Lan Wangji said honestly. Wei Wuxian covered his face for a second. Wow, worst blind date ever, he groaned. Then he looked up again. So what do they want? Lan Wangji's expression turned cold. Control. Information. Weakness. He paused, then added, You can become all three. Wei Wuxian went quiet. For the first time, he truly understood the danger. This wasn't a joke anymore. He wasn't just curious or excited, he was involved. After a long silence, Wei Wuxian spoke again, softer this time. Then I should leave, he said. If I stay, I'll only cause you trouble. Lan Wangji's eyes darkened slightly. You are not trouble. But I am a weakness, right? Wei Wuxian said, forcing a small smile. Lan Wangji stepped closer, his voice firm. You are under my protection. Wei Wuxian held his gaze. And what if they use me against you? He asked. What if one day you have to choose? Lan Wangji did not answer immediately. The silence stretched, heavy and tense. Then he said, I will not let it happen. Wei Wuxian sighed. You really believe you can control everything? I will try, Lan Wangji replied. For a moment, Wei Wuxian just stared at him. Then he suddenly laughed softly. You're impossible, he said. Cold face. Few words. But somehow very stubborn. Lan Wangji said nothing, but he did not deny it. Wei Wuxian stood up and walked around the room, thinking. Then he stopped and turned back. All right, he said. If I'm already part of this, then I won't just hide behind you. Lan Wangji frowned slightly. Explain. Wei Wuxian crossed his arms. I want to know more. About your world. About your enemies. If they're targeting me, I should at least understand why. No, Lan Wangji said immediately. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. No, it is too dangerous, Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian stepped closer, not backing down. Everything about this is dangerous, he replied. But I'm not weak. Lan Wangji looked at him carefully. There was determination in Wei Wuxian's eyes, not fear. After a long pause, Lan Wangji finally spoke. Fine. Wei Wuxian smiled a little. That's better. Lan Wangji picked up another file and placed it in front of him. But you will stay close to me at all times. Wei Wuxian nodded. Deal. As he opened the file, his expression slowly turned serious. Names, photos, details, it was all real. Too real. And as Wei Wuxian read deeper, he realized something important. This was no longer just Lan Wangji's world. It was becoming his too. The next morning felt strangely calm. Sunlight came through the large windows, making everything look peaceful, as if nothing dangerous had happened the night before. But Wei Wuxian knew better now. He sat at the table, flipping through the file again, his expression serious. So this is your enemy, he murmured. Across from him, Lan Wangji watched quietly. Their leader is careful, he said. They do not act without reason. Wei Wuxian nodded slowly. Which means, if they're watching me, they're planning something. Lan Wangji's gaze sharpened. Yes. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Wei Wuxian suddenly closed the file. Then let's not wait, he said. Lan Wangji frowned slightly. Explain. Wei Wuxian leaned forward, eyes bright with a new kind of energy. If they're targeting me because I'm close to you, then we can use that, he said. No, Lan Wangji said immediately. Wei Wuxian sighed. You didn't even let me finish. It is too risky, Lan Wangji replied. Wei Wuxian stood up, a little annoyed. Everything is risky with you, he said. But think about it, right now they're hiding, watching, waiting. We don't even know where they are. Lan Wangji remained calm, but his eyes stayed on Wei Wuxian. And your plan? Wei Wuxian crossed his arms. We make them come to us. Lan Wangji's expression darkened slightly. You mean use yourself as bait? Wei Wuxian gave a small shrug. If it works, we can find them faster. No, Lan Wangji repeated, more firmly this time. I will not allow it. Wei Wuxian stepped closer, frustration clear on his face. Why not? You said I'm already involved. You said I'm a target. So what's the difference? The difference, Lan Wangji said quietly, is that I will not place you in danger on purpose. Wei Wuxian paused. The seriousness in Lan Wangji's voice made him stop arguing for a moment. You really don't want me to get hurt, he said softly. Lan Wangji did not look away. Yes. For a few seconds, Wei Wuxian didn't know what to say. His heart felt strangely warm, even in such a dangerous situation. Then he smiled a little. You're too protective, he said. Lan Wangji said nothing. But, Wei Wuxian continued, his tone turning serious again, we still need a plan. Lan Wangji nodded slightly. We will strengthen security, track their movements, wait for an opening. Wei Wuxian sighed. That sounds slow. It is safe, Lan Wangji replied. Wei Wuxian looked at him, then suddenly smiled in a different way. Mischievous? Confident. You like safe plans, he said. I don't. Lan Wangji narrowed his eyes slightly. Wei Ying. That tone made Wei Wuxian laugh. Relax, relax. I won't do anything stupid for now, he added quickly. Lan Wangji didn't look convinced. Just then, a phone on the table rang. Both of them turned toward it. Lan Wangji picked it up, his expression turning serious as he listened. After a few seconds, he said, Understood, and ended the call. What happened? Wei Wuxian asked. Lan Wangji looked at him. They made a move. Wei Wuxian's smile disappeared. Already? Lan Wangji nodded. One of my warehouses was attacked. Wei Wuxian clenched his fists slightly. So they're not just watching anymore. No, Lan Wangji said. They are testing. Wei Wuxian took a deep breath. Then we don't have much time. Lan Wangji stepped closer, his presence calm but strong. Stay here, he said. Wei Wuxian immediately shook his head. No, I'm coming with you. It is dangerous, Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian met his gaze without fear. So is staying here alone while they know about me, he replied. Lan Wangji hesitated for a moment. Then he sighed quietly. Stay close. Wei Wuxian smiled again. Always. As they walked out together, the tension in the air grew heavier. The game had started. And this time there was no turning back. The warehouse stood at the edge of the city, quiet and almost empty. Broken crates were scattered around, and the air still smelled like smoke. Wei Wuxian stepped out of the car and looked around carefully. So this is where it happened, he said softly. Beside him, Lan Wangji walked forward without hesitation, his expression cold and focused. Several men were already there, checking the area. One of them quickly came over. Sir, the attackers are gone. But they left traces. Lan Wangji nodded. Show me. Wei Wuxian followed closely as they moved deeper inside. The place was a mess, but something felt strange. It didn't look like a full attack. It looked controlled. They didn't destroy everything, Wei Wuxian murmured, looking around. If they wanted to hurt you, they could have done more. Lan Wangji glanced at him. What are you thinking? Wei Wuxian crossed his arms, thinking fast. This wasn't just an attack, he said. It was a message. Lan Wangji's eyes darkened slightly. Go on. Wei Wuxian pointed at the surroundings. They came in, caused some damage, then left quickly. No chaos, no unnecessary destruction. That means they weren't trying to win. They were trying to show something. Lan Wangji nodded slowly. A warning. Exactly, Wei Wuxian said. Then he looked at Lan Wangji seriously. And I think it's about me. For a moment, the air went still. Before Lan Wangji could respond, one of the guards called out, Sir, we found something. They walked over quickly. On the ground, near a broken crate, there was a small device. Lan Wangji picked it up, his expression turning colder. Wei Wuxian leaned closer. Another message? Lan Wangji opened it. Inside was a short note. He read it silently, then his grip tightened slightly. What does it say? Wei Wuxian asked. Lan Wangji hesitated for a second, then handed it to him. Wei Wuxian read the words, and his smile disappeared. Give him to us, or lose everything. Wei Wuxian lowered the note slowly. So it really is about me, he said quietly. Lan Wangji's voice turned sharp. They are provoking me. Wei Wuxian looked at him. And testing you, he added. Lan Wangji didn't deny it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Wei Wuxian suddenly laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. Wow, I became very important very fast, he said. Lan Wangji stepped closer, his presence firm. You are not something to be traded. Wei Wuxian met his eyes. But they think I am your weakness. Lan Wangji's gaze didn't waver. They are wrong. Wei Wuxian held that gaze for a few seconds, then looked away, thinking. Maybe, he said slowly, we can use that. Lan Wangji immediately frowned. No, Wei Wuxian sighed. You didn't even let me explain again. I already know your idea, Lan Wangji replied. And I refuse. Wei Wuxian turned to him, more serious now. Listen, he said. They want me. That means they'll come for me. Instead of waiting, we control when and where. It is too dangerous, Lan Wangji said firmly. Wei Wuxian stepped closer, his voice lower but steady. This is already dangerous, he said. If we do nothing, they'll keep attacking. More people could get hurt. Lan Wangji went silent. Wei Wuxian continued. But if we plan it right, we can end this. For a long moment, Lan Wangji didn't respond. His eyes stayed on Wei Wuxian, searching, calculating. You trust me? Wei Wuxian asked softly. Lan Wangji answered without hesitation. Yes. Then trust my plan, Wei Wuxian said. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Lan Wangji closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. His decision was clear. We will plan carefully, he said. Wei Wuxian smiled slightly. That's all I needed. Lan Wangji added, his voice serious. But you will not face them alone. Not for a second. Wei Wuxian nodded. Deal. As they stood there in the damaged warehouse, both of them understood one thing clearly. The next move would decide everything. And this time they would not just react. They would strike first. That night, the atmosphere inside the house was completely different. No jokes, no teasing, only quiet focus. Wei Wuxian sat at the table, studying the map spread in front of him. His usual playful expression was gone, replaced by sharp concentration. Across from him, Lan Wangji listened as his men reported every detail. Locations, movements, possible hideouts, everything was carefully noted. When the room finally fell silent, all eyes turned to Wei Wuxian. Well? Lan Wangji asked. Wei Wuxian tapped the map lightly. They want me, he said, so we give them a chance. But on our terms. Lan Wangji's gaze remained steady. Explain fully. Wei Wuxian nodded. We spread information, he began. Let it accidentally leak that I'll be alone at a specific place. One of the men frowned. That's too risky. Wei Wuxian raised a hand. I said, alone. Not actually alone, he corrected. You'll all be hidden nearby. The moment they show up, we surround them. Lan Wangji stayed silent, watching him closely. Wei Wuxian continued. They think I'm your weakness. That makes them confident. And confident people make mistakes. The room grew quiet again. And what if they don't come? Someone asked. They will, Wei Wuxian said calmly. They already sent a message. They won't miss this chance. Lan Wangji finally spoke. Location. Wei Wuxian pointed to a spot on the map. An open area. Not too crowded, not too empty. Somewhere they can approach easily. But also somewhere we can control. Lan Wangji studied the map, then gave a small nod. It is acceptable. Wei Wuxian smiled a little. So you agree? I agree, Lan Wangji said, then added firmly. With conditions. Wei Wuxian sighed. Of course you have conditions. You will wear protection, Lan Wangji said. You will stay within range at all times. And if anything feels wrong, you leave immediately. Wei Wuxian leaned back, crossing his arms. You really don't trust me, do you? I trust you, Lan Wangji replied. I do not trust them. For a moment, Wei Wuxian just looked at him. Then he smiled softly. All right, I'll follow your rules. Lan Wangji nodded once, satisfied. The next day came faster than expected. The chosen location was quiet, just as planned. Wei Wuxian stood alone under the fading evening light, hands in his pockets, trying to look relaxed. But inside, his heart was beating fast. Hidden in the shadows, Lan Wangji watched everything carefully. His eyes never left Wei Wuxian, his body tense and ready. Minutes passed. Nothing. Wei Wuxian sighed softly. They're late, he muttered. Just as he said that, a faint sound came from behind. Footsteps. Wei Wuxian's expression didn't change, but his senses sharpened. Slowly, he turned around. 3 figures stepped out of the shadows. Well, one of them said with a cold smile, you made this easy for us. Wei Wuxian tilted his head slightly. Did I? He replied calmly. The man laughed. You really came alone. Wei Wuxian smiled faintly. Looks can be deceiving. The air grew tense. From the shadows, Lan Wangji's eyes narrowed. Everything was about to begin. The air felt heavy as the 3 men slowly surrounded Wei Wuxian. Their footsteps were quiet, controlled, clearly trained. But Wei Wuxian didn't move back. He simply stood there, calm, with a small smile on his face. You're braver than we expected, one of them said, tilting his head. Or maybe just foolish. Wei Wuxian shrugged lightly. Maybe both, he replied. But you came, just like I thought. The man's smile faded slightly. You talk too much. And you talk too little. Wei Wuxian shot back easily. Hidden nearby, Lan Wangji watched every movement. His body was tense, ready to act at the smallest signal. His men were already in position, waiting for his order. Back in the open, the leader of the group stepped closer to Wei Wuxian. Come with us, he said coldly. It will be easier for everyone. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. And if I say no? The man's expression turned darker. Then we make you. For a brief second, silence fell. Then, Wei Wuxian smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. At that exact moment, the atmosphere shifted. From all sides, Lan Wangji's men moved in, surrounding the attackers instantly. The 3 men froze, clearly surprised. What? One of them started, but it was too late. Lan Wangji stepped out of the shadows, his presence calm but overwhelming. His eyes were cold as they landed on the intruders. You walked into my trap, he said quietly. The leader clenched his jaw. So this was planned. Wei Wuxian stepped back slightly, now safely within Lan Wangji's range. Of course it was, he said casually. Did you really think I'd come alone? The men tried to escape, but they were already surrounded. Within moments, they were restrained, unable to fight back. It was over faster than expected. Wei Wuxian let out a breath. That went smoother than I thought, he said. But Lan Wangji didn't relax. His eyes were still sharp, scanning the area. Something's wrong, he said suddenly. Wei Wuxian frowned. What do you mean? We got them. Before he could finish, a sharp sound cut through the air. Everything happened in a second. Lan Wangji's expression changed, and he moved instantly. Wei Ying, a hidden attacker, unnoticed until now, stepped out from a distance. Wei Wuxian barely had time to react. Lan Wangji pulled him aside, shielding him completely. A loud noise echoed, then silence. For a moment, Wei Wuxian couldn't understand what just happened. His heart was pounding, his mind blank. Slowly, he looked up. Lan Zhan, he called softly. Lan Wangji was still standing in front of him, unmoving. But something was wrong, very wrong. Wei Wuxian's hands trembled slightly as he noticed it. Lan Wangji had taken the hit meant for him. Why? Wei Wuxian whispered, his voice shaking. Lan Wangji didn't answer immediately. His breathing was heavier now, but his eyes were still focused, still on Wei Wuxian. I said, he spoke quietly, I would protect you. Wei Wuxian's chest tightened painfully. For the first time, fear truly hit him. Not for himself, but for Lan Wangji. Everything around them felt distant and quiet, like the world had suddenly slowed down. Wei Wuxian stared at Lan Wangji, his mind refusing to accept what just happened. Lan Zhan? He called again, his voice shaking. Lan Wangji was still standing, but his body had gone tense. His hand pressed slightly against his side, and his breathing was uneven. Even so, his eyes remained steady, focused only on Wei Wuxian. I'm fine, he said quietly. Wei Wuxian's expression tightened. You're clearly not fine, he snapped, stepping closer. His hands hovered for a second, unsure where to touch, afraid to hurt him more. Why would you do that? Lan Wangji didn't answer immediately. Around them, his men quickly secured the area. The hidden attacker was caught within seconds, and the rest were completely restrained. But none of that mattered to Wei Wuxian right now. All he could see was Lan Wangji. You idiot! Wei Wuxian whispered, his voice softer now, filled with emotion. That was meant for me. Lan Wangji finally spoke, his tone calm despite everything. I know. Then why? Because it should not be you, Lan Wangji said. The simple answer hit harder than anything else. Wei Wuxian froze. His chest felt tight, his heart beating too fast. You? He started, but no words came out. Lan Wangji's strength was starting to fade, just slightly. He took a small step back, but Wei Wuxian quickly moved forward, catching him before he could lose balance. Hey, careful, Wei Wuxian said, supporting him. Don't act strong right now. Lan Wangji didn't resist. For the first time, he allowed himself to lean just a little on Wei Wuxian. We need to get you treated, Wei Wuxian said urgently, looking around. Now. Lan Wangji nodded once. Amen. As they moved toward the car, Wei Wuxian stayed close, one arm firmly around him. His mind was racing, filled with worry, guilt, and something deeper he didn't want to name yet. You really don't think things through? Wei Wuxian muttered, trying to sound normal, but his voice was still shaking. What if something worse happened? Lan Wangji glanced at him. You are safe. Wei Wuxian stopped walking for a second, turning to face him. That's not the point, he said, more emotional than before. What about you? Lan Wangji looked at him quietly. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Lan Wangji spoke, softer this time. You matter. Wei Wuxian's breath caught. No long explanation, no complicated words, just that. You matter. Wei Wuxian looked away quickly, trying to hide the sudden warmth in his eyes. You're really unfair, he murmured. Lan Wangji didn't understand, but he didn't ask. Soon they reached the car. As they got inside, Wei Wuxian stayed close, still holding him, not letting go even for a second. The ride back felt long, too long. Wei Wuxian kept watching Lan Wangji, checking his breathing, making sure he was still conscious. Don't fall asleep, he said quietly. Stay awake. I'm awake, Lan Wangji replied. Good, Wei Wuxian said, though his voice was still tense. After a moment he added more softly, Next time, don't do that again. Lan Wangji turned his head slightly. If needed, I will. Wei Wuxian frowned. You're impossible. Lan Wangji didn't deny it. When they finally arrived, people were already waiting. Everything moved quickly, treatment, instructions, tension in the air. But through it all, Wei Wuxian didn't leave. Not even for a second. As Lan Wangji was being treated, Wei Wuxian stood nearby, watching silently. And deep inside, one truth became clear. This was no longer just a dangerous situation. It had become something much more personal. The room was quiet, filled only with the faint sound of movement as the doctor finished treating Lan Wangji. The injury was serious, but not life-threatening. Still, the atmosphere remained tense. A few moments later, the doctor stepped back. He needs rest, he said. No stress, no movement for a while. Wei Wuxian nodded quickly. Got it. Thank you. As everyone else slowly left the room, Wei Wuxian stayed behind. He stood near the bed, arms crossed, watching Lan Wangji carefully. You heard that, right? Wei Wuxian said. Rest. That means no acting cool and walking around like nothing happened. Lan Wangji, sitting up slightly, looked at him. I am fine. Wei Wuxian frowned immediately. No, you're not. Stop saying that. Lan Wangji didn't argue this time. The room fell into a soft silence. After a moment, Wei Wuxian walked closer and sat down beside the bed. His usual smile was gone, replaced with something more serious, more honest. You scared me, he said quietly. Lan Wangji's eyes shifted slightly, focusing on him. Wei Wuxian let out a small breath. When that happened, for a second, I thought. He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Lan Wangji watched him, waiting. Wei Wuxian looked down at his hands. I thought I was going to lose you, he admitted softly. The words hung in the air. Lan Wangji's expression changed, just slightly, so subtle that most people wouldn't notice. But it was there. You will not, he said. Wei Wuxian shook his head. You can't promise that, he replied. Things like this, they don't follow promises. Lan Wangji didn't respond immediately. Then, slowly, he said, I will still try. Wei Wuxian let out a small, helpless laugh. You really are stubborn. A quiet pause followed. Then Wei Wuxian looked up again, meeting his eyes. Why? He asked. Why go this far for me? Lan Wangji didn't look away. Because it is you. Wei Wuxian blinked, caught off guard. That's not an answer. It is, Lan Wangji said simply. Wei Wuxian stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed, leaning back slightly. You're really bad at explaining things, he said. Lan Wangji remained silent. Another quiet moment passed, but this time it felt softer. Wei Wuxian hesitated, then spoke again, more gently. You know, before all this, my life was normal, he said. Simple. No danger, no enemies. Lan Wangji listened quietly. And now, Wei Wuxian continued, everything is different. He paused, then added, but I don't regret meeting you. Lan Wangji's gaze softened slightly. Wei Wuxian smiled faintly. Even if you're a mafia boss who keeps getting into trouble, he joked lightly. Lan Wangji almost looked like he wanted to respond. But in the end, he just said, Amen. Wei Wuxian laughed softly. That's all you say. For a while, they just sat there in comfortable silence. Then, slowly, Wei Wuxian reached out and adjusted the blanket over Lan Wangji, making sure he was properly covered. Sleep, he said quietly. You need it. Lan Wangji looked at him, then nodded slightly. As he closed his eyes, Wei Wuxian didn't move. He stayed right there watching over him. And somewhere in that quiet room, something between them changed again. Something deeper, stronger, and impossible to ignore anymore. The next few days were quieter than expected. No attacks, no messages, no sudden danger. But somehow that silence felt more unsettling than anything else. Inside the house, Lan Wangji was finally resting properly. Though he still looked calm as always, his movements were slower, more careful. And every single time he tried to do anything, Wei Wuxian was right there. Don't move. Sit down. Didn't the doctor say rest? Lan Wangji had never been ordered around this much in his life. I am fine, he said again. For maybe the 10th time that day, Wei Wuxian crossed his arms. Say that one more time and I'm leaving, he threatened. Lan Wangji went quiet. Wei Wuxian smirked. That's what I thought. For a moment, the atmosphere felt light again, almost normal. But only for a moment. Later that evening, Wei Wuxian stood by the window looking outside. His expression slowly turned serious again. It's too quiet, he said. From behind him, Lan Wangji replied, They are waiting. Wei Wuxian nodded slightly. Yeah, just like us. He turned around and walked back, stopping near the bed. The people you caught, he asked. Did they say anything? Lan Wangji's eyes darkened slightly. Very little. Meaning, they were not meant to talk. Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian frowned. So even the ones we caught are just small pieces. Lan Wangji nodded once. Wei Wuxian sighed, running a hand through his hair. This enemy of yours is really careful. They are not only mine, Lan Wangji corrected. Wei Wuxian paused, then gave a small smile. Right, ours. The word felt strange, but not wrong. Lan Wangji watched him. What do you suggest? Wei Wuxian's eyes sharpened slightly. We make them nervous. Lan Wangji didn't interrupt this time. Wei Wuxian continued. Right now they think they're in control, watching from the shadows, planning slowly. He paused, then added, so we break that. How? Lan Wangji asked. Wei Wuxian leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. We start moving first, he said. Not waiting, not reacting. We push them. Lan Wangji considered his words carefully. If we hit the right places, Wei Wuxian continued, their calm will break, and when people lose control, they make mistakes. Lan Wangji nodded slowly. And we use those mistakes. Wei Wuxian smiled. Exactly. For a moment, they both understood each other perfectly. Then Lan Wangji said, it will be dangerous. Wei Wuxian shrugged lightly. When has it not been? Lan Wangji looked at him for a long second, then finally nodded. We proceed carefully. Wei Wuxian grinned. Of course, I'm always careful. Lan Wangji didn't look convinced. Just then, a knock came at the door. One of the men stepped in quickly. Sir, he said, we found something. Both Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji turned toward him. What is it? Wei Wuxian asked. The man hesitated for a second, then said, a location, possibly one of their bases. The room went still. Wei Wuxian's eyes lit up slightly. Finally, he said. Lan Wangji stood up slowly, ignoring the pain. Prepare the team, he ordered. Wei Wuxian immediately frowned. Hey, what did I say about resting? Lan Wangji looked at him calmly. This is important. Wei Wuxian opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. He knew he couldn't win this one. Fine, he sighed. But I'm coming too. No, Lan Wangji said immediately. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. Here we go again. It is too dangerous, Lan Wangji repeated. Wei Wuxian stepped closer, his voice firm. So we face it together, he said. Lan Wangji looked at him. Wei Wuxian didn't look away. After a long pause, Lan Wangji finally said, stay close. Wei Wuxian smiled. Always. And just like that, the quiet days ended. The next move was theirs. And this time, they were going straight into the enemy's territory. The night air was cold and still as the cars stopped a short distance away from the target location. The place looked abandoned from the outside, but everyone knew better. Inside the car, Wei Wuxian took a deep breath. So this is it, he said quietly. Beside him, Lan Wangji checked his weapon one last time, his expression calm but focused. Stay behind me, he said. Wei Wuxian rolled his eyes slightly. You've said that at least 10 times already. Lan Wangji didn't respond. Wei Wuxian smiled faintly. Don't worry. I'll be careful. After a brief pause, the team moved out. Step by step, they approached the building. The silence was heavy, almost unnatural. No guards outside. No movement. Nothing. That's not normal, Wei Wuxian whispered. Lan Wangji nodded slightly. Be alert. They entered carefully. The inside was dark, with only faint light coming from a few broken windows. Every sound echoed softly, making the space feel even more tense. Wei Wuxian looked around, his senses sharp. Too empty, he murmured. It feels like a trap, Lan Wangji finished. Before anyone could react, the lights suddenly turned on. Blinding brightness filled the room. At the same time, multiple footsteps echoed from above and around them. They were surrounded. Wei Wuxian clicked his tongue. Well, that confirms it. From the upper level, a slow clap echoed. Impressive, a voice said. You actually came. Both Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji looked up. A man stepped forward from the shadows, clearly the leader this time. "So you're the famous Lan Wangji," he said with a faint smile. "And the one you're protecting." His eyes moved to Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian crossed his arms. "Nice to finally meet the person causing all this trouble," he said casually. The man chuckled. "You're bold. I like that." Lan Wangji stepped slightly in front of Wei Wuxian, his voice cold. "State your purpose." The man's smile didn't fade. Straight to the point. "Good." He paused, then added, "I want him." Silence. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. "You're really direct." Lan Wangji's presence turned colder. "No." The man sighed lightly. "You didn't even consider it." "There is nothing to consider," Lan Wangji replied. The leader's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're willing to risk everything for one person?" Lan Wangji didn't hesitate. "Yes." Wei Wuxian's heart skipped a beat. The man noticed the reaction and smiled. "Interesting," he said. "Very interesting." Then his expression turned serious. "Then let's see how long you can protect him." In an instant, chaos broke out. Gunshots echoed, footsteps rushed, and the entire place turned into a battlefield. Lan Wangji moved quickly, staying close to Wei Wuxian, blocking and attacking with precision. His movements were sharp despite his injury. Wei Wuxian stayed close, but he wasn't just hiding, he was watching, thinking, reacting. "Left!" he called suddenly. Lan Wangji moved instantly, avoiding an attack. "Behind!" Again, Lan Wangji reacted perfectly. Even in the middle of chaos, they worked together smoothly. But the enemies were many. Too many. Wei Wuxian's expression turned serious. "This isn't good," he muttered. "They planned everything." Lan Wangji didn't respond, but his movements became faster, more aggressive. They needed a way out, and fast. As the fight continued, the enemy leader watched from above, his eyes cold and calculating. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. Down below, surrounded and outnumbered, Wei Wuxian clenched his fists. They had walked into the enemy's trap, and escaping it would not be easy. The noise of the fight filled the entire building, footsteps, shouts, and sharp sounds echoing from every direction. Wei Wuxian stayed close to Lan Wangji, his mind working fast even as chaos surrounded them. "This is bad," Wei Wuxian said under his breath. "They have too many people." Lan Wangji didn't reply, but his movements became even sharper. He blocked an attack, then pulled Wei Wuxian slightly behind him again. "I told you to stay close," he said. "I am staying close." Wei Wuxian shot back, ducking as something flew past him. "But we can't just keep defending like this." Lan Wangji's eyes scanned the area quickly. "There must be an exit." Wei Wuxian followed his gaze, searching. Then suddenly his eyes lit up. "There!" He pointed toward a narrow corridor on the side. "That way." Lan Wangji didn't hesitate. "Move." They pushed forward together, breaking through the line of enemies. Every step was a struggle, but they didn't stop. Just as they reached the corridor, a loud noise echoed behind them. Wei Wuxian turned slightly and saw it. The enemy leader had moved, and he was coming straight toward them. "Lan Zhan," Wei Wuxian said quickly. "He's not letting us leave." Lan Wangji's expression hardened. "Go ahead." Wei Wuxian frowned. "What?" "I will hold him," Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian's eyes widened. "No way. I'm not leaving you behind." "Wei Ying," Lan Wangji said firmly. "This is not the time to argue." Wei Wuxian stepped closer instead. "Exactly. That's why I'm not going anywhere." For a split second, they just looked at each other, both stubborn, both refusing to back down. Then, the enemy leader appeared in front of them, blocking the path completely. "Leaving so soon?" he said with a faint smile. Wei Wuxian sighed. "You're really annoying, you know that?" The man chuckled. "And you're very important, whether you like it or not." Lan Wangji stepped forward, placing himself between them. "Stay back," he told Wei Wuxian. But this time, Wei Wuxian didn't move. Instead, he stood beside him. "Together," he said simply. Lan Wangji glanced at him, just for a moment, then gave a small nod. The fight that followed was different, more intense, more personal. The enemy leader was strong, fast, precise, and clearly experienced. Every move was calculated. But Lan Wangji didn't fall behind. Even injured, he fought with cold focus. And beside him, Wei Wuxian didn't stay still. He watched carefully, calling out warnings, helping create openings. Right? Lan Wangji moved instantly. Now! Perfect moment. The enemy leader stepped back slightly, surprised. For the first time, his calm expression cracked just a little. Interesting, he murmured. Wei Wuxian smirked. Told you. But they didn't have time to relax. More enemies were coming. Wei Wuxian's expression turned serious again. We can't keep this up, he said. We need to leave now. Lan Wangji nodded slightly. Then, in one quick move, he created an opening. Go, he said. This time, Wei Wuxian didn't argue. They both moved at the same time, rushing into the corridor. Behind them, chaos continued, but they didn't look back. They ran, fast, through dark hallways, past broken doors, following instinct more than anything. Finally, a door. Wei Wuxian pushed it open. Fresh air hit them. They were outside. For a second, both of them stopped, breathing heavily. They had made it out, but just barely. Wei Wuxian let out a breath. That was way too close. Lan Wangji stood beside him, still alert, making sure no one followed. After a moment, Wei Wuxian looked at him and smiled faintly. We survived, he said. Lan Wangji looked back at him, his expression softening just a little. Yes, he replied. But deep down, both of them knew this fight wasn't over. Not even close. The ride back was quiet. Too quiet. No one spoke as the cars moved through the dark roads. Wei Wuxian sat beside Lan Wangji, his mind still replaying everything that had just happened. The trap, the fight, the narrow escape. We were too close, Wei Wuxian finally said softly. Lan Wangji didn't reply immediately. His gaze was still forward, calm but distant. Yes. Wei Wuxian turned to look at him properly. If we were just a little slower, he started, then stopped. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Lan Wangji understood. After a moment, Wei Wuxian sighed and leaned back slightly. They're not just strong, he said. They're smart, careful. And now they know exactly how far you'll go for me. Lan Wangji's expression darkened slightly. It changes nothing. Wei Wuxian gave a small, tired smile. It changes everything. The car fell silent again. When they finally reached home, the tension didn't disappear. If anything, it grew heavier. Inside, the others quickly went to report and secure everything, but Wei Wuxian didn't move. He stood there for a moment, then turned toward Lan Wangji. We need to talk, he said. Lan Wangji nodded once. Amen. They moved to a quieter room. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Wei Wuxian took a deep breath. This can't continue like this, he said. They're targeting me to get to you. And now, they've seen how important I am to you. Lan Wangji didn't deny it. Wei Wuxian continued. That makes me your biggest weakness. You are not. I am. Wei Wuxian interrupted, his voice firm but not angry. And you know it. Silence. Lan Wangji's hands tightened slightly, but he didn't speak. Wei Wuxian stepped closer. Listen to me, he said more gently. If this keeps going, they'll keep coming after me. Again and again. And one day, they might succeed. Lan Wangji's gaze turned colder. They will not. You can't control everything, Wei Wuxian replied quietly. That made Lan Wangji go still. Wei Wuxian looked at him carefully, then said something he had been holding back. Maybe I should leave. The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Lan Wangji's eyes changed instantly. No, he said. It wasn't loud, but it was firm. Wei Wuxian forced a small smile. It might be the safest option, he said. If I'm not here, they lose their reason to attack you like this. Lan Wangji stepped closer, his presence suddenly overwhelming. I said no. Wei Wuxian didn't step back. And I said it might be necessary. A tense silence filled the room. Then Lan Wangji spoke again, slower this time. You think leaving will end this? Wei Wuxian hesitated. Maybe not completely, but it will help. Lan Wangji shook his head slightly. They have already marked you. Leaving will not protect you. Wei Wuxian went quiet. Deep down, he knew that was true. Then Lan Wangji added, his voice softer but stronger. And I will not let you go. Wei Wuxian looked at him, surprised by the intensity in his tone. Why? He asked again, this time more seriously than ever. Lan Wangji held his gaze. For the same reason as before, he said. Wei Wuxian frowned slightly. That's not enough. This time, Lan Wangji didn't stay silent. I want you to stay, he said. Simple, clear, but different from before. Wei Wuxian's breath caught slightly. That's still not a full answer, he said, though his voice was softer now. Lan Wangji stepped even closer. His eyes didn't leave Wei Wuxian's. Because I care about you. The words were quiet, but they changed everything. Wei Wuxian froze. For a moment he couldn't think, couldn't speak. All the fear, all the tension, all the confusion suddenly felt clear. He looked away for a second, then laughed softly, almost helplessly. You really choose the worst time to say things like that, he murmured. Lan Wangji didn't respond. He just waited. Slowly, Wei Wuxian looked back at him. You're serious? He asked. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Wei Wuxian stared at him for a long moment. Then, finally, he smiled. A real one this time. Then I guess, he said softly, I'm not leaving. Lan Wangji's expression softened, just slightly. And in that quiet room, with danger still waiting outside, they made a choice. To stay. Together. The night felt quieter after everything that had happened. But the silence no longer felt empty. Felt heavy yet calm at the same time. Inside the room, Wei Wuxian leaned against the window looking outside. The city lights flickered in the distance, peaceful and unaware of the danger hiding in the shadows. Behind him, Lan Wangji stood still, his gaze fixed on Wei Wuxian. Neither of them spoke for a while. After everything that had been said, words felt unnecessary. Finally, Wei Wuxian let out a small breath. You know, he said, my life really changed because of one wrong blind date. Lan Wangji didn't respond, but his eyes softened slightly. Wei Wuxian turned around, a faint smile on his face. If I had known you were a Mafia king, I might have run away that day. Lan Wangji asked quietly. Would you? Wei Wuxian paused. Then he shook his head. No, he admitted. Probably not. A small silence followed. Then Wei Wuxian stepped closer. But things are different now, he said. This isn't just about us anymore. Your enemies won't stop. Lan Wangji nodded slightly. I know. Wei Wuxian crossed his arms, thinking. Then we end it, he said. Lan Wangji looked at him. How? Wei Wuxian's expression turned serious again. We stop playing defense, he said. No more waiting for them to attack. No more reacting. Lan Wangji listened carefully. Wei Wuxian continued. We find their leader and finish this. The room went quiet. Lan Wangji didn't reject the idea this time. Instead, he asked, You have a plan? Wei Wuxian smiled slightly. Not fully, he admitted. But we have something now that we didn't have before. Lan Wangji waited. Wei Wuxian's eyes sharpened. We know how they think, he said. They believe I'm your weakness. Lan Wangji's gaze darkened slightly. Wei Wuxian continued. So we use that. One last time. Lan Wangji was silent for a moment. Then he said, Explain. Wei Wuxian stepped closer, lowering his voice. We make them believe they've won, he said. We create a situation where they think they finally have control over me. Lan Wangji's expression immediately turned cold. No. Wei Wuxian sighed. You always say no first. It is too dangerous, Lan Wangji said firmly. Wei Wuxian didn't back down this time. And it's the fastest way to end this, he replied. If we reach the leader, everything ends. Lan Wangji's eyes stayed on him, searching, calculating. Wei Wuxian softened his tone slightly. This is the last time, he said. After this, no more running. No more hiding. Silence filled the room again. Then Lan Wangji spoke, quieter this time. I will be there. Wei Wuxian smiled. Of course you will. Lan Wangji added. Not even for a moment will you be alone. Wei Wuxian nodded. I know. For a second, they just stood there, close enough to feel each other's presence clearly. Then Wei Wuxian laughed softly. You know, this is kind of crazy, he said. Planning something this dangerous so calmly. Lan Wangji replied. You are calm. Wei Wuxian tilted his head. Maybe because I trust you, he said. Lan Wangji didn't answer. But he didn't look away either. That was enough. After a moment, Wei Wuxian stretched slightly. All right, he said. Let's end this. Lan Wangji nodded once. We will. Outside, the city lights continued to shine. But somewhere in the darkness, a final move was about to begin. And this time, there would be no turning back. The plan began before sunrise. The house was quiet, but the tension in the air was clear. Wei Wuxian stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his clothes like it was just a normal day. But his eyes were sharp, focused. Behind him, Lan Wangji watched in silence. Stop staring, Wei Wuxian said lightly, glancing at him through the mirror. You're making me nervous. Lan Wangji didn't move. Do not go, he said. Wei Wuxian sighed softly. We already talked about this. Silence. Wei Wuxian turned around and faced him fully. This is the best chance we have, he said, more serious now. They want me, so we use that. Lan Wangji's gaze didn't soften. I do not like this plan. I know, Wei Wuxian replied. But you agreed. Lan Wangji didn't answer. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Wei Wuxian stepped closer, his voice gentler. I won't be alone, he said. You'll be there. Your team will be there. Everything is planned. Lan Wangji finally spoke, quiet but firm. If anything goes wrong, I leave immediately, Wei Wuxian finished. Yes, I remember. Lan Wangji's eyes stayed on him, as if trying to memorize everything. Wei Wuxian smiled faintly. You really don't trust me. I trust you, Lan Wangji said. I do not trust the situation. Wei Wuxian let out a small laugh. Fair enough. A short silence followed. Then Wei Wuxian added, softer this time. We end this today. Lan Wangji nodded once. We will. By afternoon, everything was in place. Information had been leaked. Movements had been noticed. The trap was set. Wei Wuxian walked alone through a quiet street, hands in his pockets, looking completely relaxed. But hidden from sight, eyes were watching, protecting, waiting. Minutes passed. Then, car stopped nearby. Wei Wuxian didn't turn immediately. He only smiled slightly. Took you long enough, he murmured. The door opened. Several men stepped out. No tricks this time, one of them said. Wei Wuxian slowly turned around, raising his hands casually. Relax, he said. I came alone. They moved quickly, surrounding him. Wei Wuxian didn't resist. As they took him, his eyes shifted slightly, just for a second. A silent signal. Far away, hidden in the shadows, Lan Wangji saw it. And moved. The final plan had begun. The moment Wei Wuxian was taken, everything moved fast. Inside the car, his hands were tied, but his mind was calm. He quietly observed the route, counting turns, memorizing time. Even now, he didn't look afraid. One of the men beside him smirked. You're too quiet. Wei Wuxian smiled faintly. Should I scream instead? The man frowned but said nothing. After a long drive, they finally stopped at a hidden building far from the city. As Wei Wuxian was taken inside, he glanced around carefully. Good, he thought. Lan Zhan will find this. Soon, the enemy leader appeared. You came without resistance, he said. Wei Wuxian tilted his head. You wanted me. I came. The man smiled coldly. You're either very brave or very stupid. Wei Wuxian's eyes sharpened slightly. Maybe you'll find out soon. Not long after, The entire building suddenly lost power. Lights went out. Alarms started ringing. Panic spread among the guards. Wei Wuxian's lips curved into a small smile. Right on time. Outside, Lan Wangji and his team had already surrounded the place. Their attack was fast, precise, and unstoppable. Inside, in the confusion, Wei Wuxian broke free using the small tool he had hidden earlier. He moved quickly through the dark corridor, and then stopped. A familiar figure stood in front of him. Lan Wangji. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Wei Wuxian smiled. Took you long enough. Lan Wangji stepped closer. Are you hurt? Wei Wuxian shook his head. I'm fine. A brief pause. Then, let's finish this, Wei Wuxian said. Lan Wangji nodded. Amen. Together, they moved forward. The final fight didn't last long. The enemy leader tried to escape, but this time there was no way out. Surrounded, outmatched, finished, silence slowly returned to the building. For the first time in a long time, there was no danger left. Outside, the sky was beginning to brighten. Wei Wuxian let out a deep breath. It's really over, he said softly. Beside him, Lan Wangji stood quietly. After a moment, Wei Wuxian looked at him and smiled. You know, this all started with a wrong blind date. Lan Wangji replied. Not wrong. Wei Wuxian blinked. Oh, Lan Wangji met his eyes. It was right. For a second, Wei Wuxian said nothing. Then he laughed softly. Yeah, he said. Maybe it was. They stood there together, side by side, as the sun slowly rose. No more enemies. No more running. Just them. And this time, they stayed.